Hi, this is Jenny Owens. I'm going to look at the Code of Fair Testing and Education and compare it with ACA's Code of Ethics. First off, I noticed that the Code of Fair Testing and Education did not seem to be quite as comprehensive as the ACA's Code of Ethics. That's probably because the Code of Fair Testing and Education, also known as the Code, provides guidance specifically for educational testing, whereas the ACA's Code of Ethics addresses all kinds of assessments, both educational, mental health, psychological, and career assessments. The code was created by the Joint Committee on Testing Practices, which had members from 7 different professional organizations, and one of those was the ACA. The code emphasizes fairness, which is one aspect of ethics. The ACA's Code of Ethics definitely also emphasizes fairness, but also other aspects of ethics. The code is one of 5 published standards that the Association for Assessment and Research in Counseling included when they compiled standards for multicultural assessment. Shepris et al. Suggest that attention must be given to multicultural issues in order to address fairness. The code emphasizes fairness to all test takers considering multicultural context. I would say that the ACA Code of Ethics also does this. They mention multicultural issues multiple times. They talk about paying attention to cultural constructs when choosing an assessment or when scoring or interpreting the data. They talk about being careful of bias and also being aware of the norms for the assessments that you are using. The Code of Fair Testing and Education is directed to test developers and test users separately, whereas the ACA Code of Ethics addresses counselors, and counselors can be the test developer or the test user. To be fair, the code has extensive points for test developers, whereas the ACA Code of Ethics only has 1 point, E12. So there's a lot more detail given for test developers in the code. When we look at test users, we see that there are several points that are not in the ACA's guidelines. One of those points is ensuring that potentially offensive content or language is avoided. The ACA just doesn't mention that, but I would say that it's probably understood. The code also says that test users should select tests with appropriately modified forms or administrative procedures for test takers with disabilities who need special accommodations. And the ACA's Code of Ethics doesn't specify using tests with these forms already existing or these procedures already written. It just mentions making those accommodations. Finally, the code says that test users should provide test takers with an opportunity to become familiar with test question formats and material or equipment. And the ACA Code of Ethics doesn't mention that. Some of the things the ACA Code of Ethics covers that the Code of Fair Testing does not is guidance for diagnosing mental disorders, the right to refrain from diagnosis, and also guidance for forensic evaluations. Overall, I think that both of them address the same principles, but there are some details that are different in both, and obviously the ACA Code of Ethics is going to cover a little bit more just because it's more comprehensive. It's really important, I think, to be aware of all these different codes so that we can be as ethical as possible in our counseling.